Well, technology, like everything, can be well done and badly done.
It can be quite difficult to know where to start.
Stop a little bit, think about what is the thing that is gonna help me on my business at this point. Technology can become so complex that it becomes more of a problem than a solution to the company. When you look at it, you have like 10, 15, 20 disconnected apps, and you don't know where the right information is.
Is there any advice you'd give to someone who's trying to know where should I put those hours of my life into learning?
Filter out the noise and focus on the signals. Nobody starts with a system that does everything. Big mistakes people go through is thinking a software will solve everything.
Every company is going to become a tech company, whether you want it or not. This isn't a prediction, it's the harsh, unavoidable reality of a digital world. And if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, if you've noticed your growth has plateaued, or if you feel like you're constantly pedaling a bike with square wheels, then you already know the cost of avoiding technology. The deepest fear isn't failure, really, it's irrelevance. It's the risk of your brand, which took years to build, being trashed in a whim because you couldn't deliver scalably. In today's episode, I sit down with Meyer, who's the founder and CEO of Reyemtech. He cuts through the confusion as we dissect the precise step by step framework every founder needs to break through that technical bottleneck and turn technology into the ultimate growth engine. We talk about why focusing on operational efficiency is more critical than marketing, how to filter noise from signal when choosing software, and the continuous evolution required to simply survive. This is a conversation that moves you past the fear of the big, scary tech world and into a disciplined, focused action plan. Join me in today's episode.
You want to keep selling to the younger generations and you're not aligned, you're not going to find them.
Mario, thank you so much for coming on to the Starting Story podcast. It's a pleasure to have you speaking to the people who listen. Could you give a brief introduction into who you are and what you do?
Yes, sure. First of all, thank you for receiving me on the podcast. It's a pleasure being here. My name is Mario Meyer. I'm the founder and CEO of Reyemtech. What we do is we are a tech advisory boutique company trying to help both startups and small and medium businesses navigate the clumsy and complex world of technology. It's not something everybody knows,
Mm.
and we know that most people need help on that area. So what we try to do is simplify technology in a way that makes sense for businesses and startups, so technology actually becomes their growth engine and not their bottleneck.
Okay. What do you mean by that? Why can technology become someone's bottleneck?
Well, technology, like everything, can be well done and badly done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since most people don't understand technology, what usually happens with small businesses and startups is they start getting technology for little problems they have on little parts of their business, right? So you have a problem with, for instance, scheduling, and you get a scheduling app for
Mm-hmm.
that. And you have another problem, you need to e-sign documents, so you got another app for e-signing documents, and then you need another app for something else and another app for something else. And when you look at it, you have like 10, 15, 20 disconnected apps, and you don't know where the right information is, right? Is it on app A, B, C, D, or Z? you
Yeah.
know you'll never know where the right information is. So without proper strategy and architecture, technology can become so complex that it becomes more of a problem than a solution to the company.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I feel like you're speaking to me here. I have the exact same problem. I remember when I started the podcast, I was like, okay, well, I don't have a very good scheduler, so you know what? Let's just get Calendly. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have a good database, so let's start using Notion. I was like, okay, well, I don't have good automation. Let's start learning how to use Make.com. But I do agree, everything becomes like this own thing where I can't, it's not really centralized. Everything is separate, and ultimately it gets to a point
Yep.
where it's saving you time, and then now you've got so many time saving things that it costs more time to operate them all in one go. Which
Yes.
I think, which I also experience that sometimes. It almost gets to the point where I'm trying to automate the things that are supposed to be automating my processes for me. So yeah, it is a big problem into the bottlenecking. You get to a certain point and then you realize, damn, how do I improve this further? without just wasting loads of time on the automations. So obviously this is me on like a small, a small podcast doing this, but I can imagine a business has, I don't know, doing inventory or loads of clients, or large scale. This must be, acting on steroids kind of thing. This problem they have, they must really be like, oh my gosh, I wish we can break through this bottleneck and start to help as many people or do as much as we can or make as much profit, which is obviously where you come in. So just so I understand, when it comes to this kind of thing, from my level of understanding, which obviously not as high as yours, if someone does want to break through that bottleneck, does that mean they have to start creating their own systems, in the sense of, do they have to start creating their own softwares and their apps, or can it still
Not
be done
necess-
separately?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. So it's what we do. It's a very tailor-made approach. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
It's actually going in, understanding what your company does, what the processes are, and try to identify those bottlenecks on your process that can be fixed by systems, right? Or
Hmm.
data disconnections that can be fixed by better systems architecture, and then figuring out a solution. We would like always to keep it simple, maybe one, two, three systems tops that try to do everything that you need. So you have that single source of truth for your data, and guarantee that your data is accurate and integrated. Because every time you need to integrate something, and you probably notice that every time that you need to integrate a system to another one, it becomes a mess, right? So
Yeah,
the
totally.
less systems you have, the more integrated you have. If you have just two or three, you can actually really integrate those systems easily, and make everything connect and talk and have the data talking between them and accurately, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do. Very tailor made, very um, one case at a time. Study what is needed, study what can be done. Think about solutions. It can be an ERP off the shelf. But when I say off the shelf here, it's also not like SaaS software that you pay a subscription and start using.
Hmm.
Those systems, to actually incorporate into your process, they usually need configuration, right? So it's not just buying a license and start using, but buying a license, configuring it to fit into your process, and then you start using it, so it's streamlined to what you actually need to do.
Wow. Well, I think that in itself gives me so much confidence in today's episode. You're clearly the perfect person for this, because the point of today's episode is, even if we don't talk about the big businesses or the people doing multiple seven figures, even if we talk about someone who's running a small scale thing, like maybe like a clothing brand, or they're doing something small scale, like they do something with shoes, or they sell like a small product, stock control, that kind of thing, they're also looking towards digitizing, and that could be for different reasons. That could be maybe just for their own business. It could be to do with, how do I become more efficient, or things are getting too out of hand in the manual processes, how can I use technology for that? But then on the other side, you have digitization to do marketing, like how do I outreach, how do I now get out of my bubble, start to get the name out there? And I feel like that in itself is different kinds of skills, right? I think I was reading, it's been a while now since I read this article, but they kind of summarized, it was basically I think it might have been on LinkedIn, to be honest. These interesting things you run across, and it was about how can you summarize all the aspects of a business where AI might be used. And I think they got it down to 4 bullet points, which I did note down here. It was operational efficiency, so that's like stock control and making sure you're not wasting your resources. That could be time, energy, stock, anything. Customer experience, that's quite self-explanatory. Market presence, so that's your marketing side of things. And then the last one they said was strategy and long-term thinking, so that's about doing your forecasting plans and stuff like that. And I was thinking, for a small business, the ones that they might be focused on much more is maybe operational efficiency and market presence. So if we just begin with that, what are the differences in why someone might need technology for those two specific things: operational efficiency and market presence?
I would say we try to focus way more on operational efficiency, because that's what gives you the scalability to
Mm.
actually be able to grow, right? Even if you do a lot of marketing using AI and automation and this and that, it doesn't mean that you can deliver all those clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if your core and your process and your operational efficiency it's not there, you can sell like hell, but you're not going to deliver all of that, and then you're going to have a problem on your hands with, your brain is going to be trashed because you're not delivering the services you said you're going to be delivering. So
Mm,
I always tell people, a lot of people try to focus more on getting clients. Of course, everybody wants to get more clients, wants to do marketing and this and that, but it doesn't matter if you get all the clients and you can't deliver to them. So I always tell people, can we do marketing? Yeah, we can do marketing. We can do sales. We can do all of that, even though it depends a little bit on the industry. Some industries, something very boilerplated and automated works. Some
mm,
other industries, it needs to be more personal touch. So it needs to be a one-to-one, and you can't automate that, right? It
mm,
depends on the case.
of course.
But on any of those cases, if you can't deliver to all those clients you want to bring, it doesn't matter, right? So, for instance, I had about the end of last year, I had a client actually in the CPG area you were talking about, and I was thinking about him because what you're explaining, he had several e-commerce stores
Mm,
on several different platforms. But each of those e-commerce stores had a different way to bring back information to his inventory and his accounts receivable, right?
yeah.
So he was his growth was stale because he didn't have enough time to bring all the information into his payments and accounting system. So for him to grow, he would need to hire more people to do those processes manually.
Mm,
And our whole talk was, how can we consolidate, make it simpler, so it doesn't take forever for your team to bring all the orders into your accounting and inventory system, right?
I see.
And it's those things. He could sell more, yeah, but for him to sell more, he would have to hire way more people to handle the load of that manual data transfer between their systems. While on the architecture we proposed to them, they could grow fivefold with the same personnel.
Wow. So you're saying that focusing on making sure you could deliver first is more important than just getting the clients. Of course, they both have their
Of
importances,
course,
but
it depends on your stage, right? If you're
yeah.
just starting in your startup, it doesn't matter focusing on delivery if you don't have any clients to deliver to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you already have something running, you already have some clients, already have some delivery. Before you start bringing a ton of clients, you gotta focus that on your delivery to make sure it's scalable.
Mm,
Because if it's not scalable, you can just trash a brand that it took long for you to build in a whim,
yeah.
right? If you start bringing people and you can deliver, your brand that may be very good right now because you have just a few clients and you're delivering good, but then you start bringing a ton of clients and you start not delivering, and then your brand goes like this. It takes years to build, it takes a few months to break it.
Yeah, of course. Especially with the technology and stuff, people can just go somewhere else. There's not
Definitely.
there's less of this case of, well, I'm the one and only supplier. There's loads of people. So it's about, if you do have someone under your belt, keeping them and making sure they're happy and delivering to their standard, to keep them as a client, which is so
Yep.
true. And so that's why I want to ask, for people that are, let's say, not digitized in their business, or are very like on a shallow level, right? And to be honest, I probably come into that category as well, of someone exploring, right? It can be quite difficult to know where to start, because if I use a podcast as an example, right, it's like, do I focus on quality of media and audio? Do I focus on CRM? Do I focus on outreach? And everything. It's not that I'm afraid of learning. It's more the case of what to learn to be the most optimal, right? And it's hard to know, and it's very industry specific. So is there any advice you'd give to someone who's trying to know, where should I put those hours of my life into learning to then have the optimal result for my business?
It's a little bit hard for startup founders, right? Because in the beginning you're doing everything,
Exactly, yeah.
right? You don't have the revenue, you don't have the cash, you simply can't hire people to do everything. You need to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
But I always tell people that entrepreneurs, they also have a big problem. They like doing everything, right? And sometimes we focus on the wrong things. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they say, "Oh, should I name my company A or B?"
Mm.
And I tell them, "Do you have any clients?" No. So why are you worried about that? Right? Should I build a system for this delivery? And I asked them, "Do you have any clients?" I said, "No." So why are you worried about that? Right? So I think we want to do everything. We want to make the perfect business,
Mm.
but sometimes we forget to focus on what's important for the moment, right? So you got to look at your moment. So if you're just starting, your big focus is getting your first client. That's it. Period. You know,
Yeah.
okay, you got your first client. Maybe you need two or three to be stable. You get your two or three first clients in your stable. So now what is my next step? What do I need to do next? Do I want to stabilize my processes so I can grow? Do I, or with this revenue, want to hire somebody to help me with outreach or sales or marketing? So instead of trying to do everything at once, and sometimes doing what is not even going to bring any benefit to your business at your stage, what I would say is people stop a little bit, think about what is the thing that is going to help me on my business at this point.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, do I need more revenue? Do I need more brand awareness? Do I need better deliveries? Because let's say you brought three clients and then you're starting not to deliver as good. What is your priority in that moment? It's fixing your
Delivery.
process,
Yeah.
right? So it's not about doing everything at once. I see people wanting to do the perfect startup on the first second. It doesn't matter to do the first startup at the first second. You may do a ton of things that make look great on paper, but then you don't have a single client, and you lost a lot of time doing something instead of reaching out to get clients, right?
Mm.
So what I would say, if you can learn, is learn how to prioritize what is needed for your business at a single point in time. And that comes from the lean methodology. On software development, we use a lot the lean methodology, meaning let's do just what we need to start. So nobody starts with a system that does everything, right? So if you think about all the big tech companies, they started with one feature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Facebook started with one feature. It was a wall where you could post. That's it, right? Instagram started with one feature, posting pictures. Uber starting with one feature, requesting a drive, right? And then they grow. Now Uber has Uber Eats. They have a ton of stuff. Facebook has a ton of features. Instagram has a ton of features. All those companies, they grow in features later, but when they start, they have one simple feature. And every startup that I'm advising, I always tell that they always want to do three, four, five, six, seven features for their clients. And I say, you don't even know if your clients want that.
True.
So
So you'd
let's
say.
let's do one feature, iterate with your client for one feature that they really want, and that's your MVP, your minimal valuable product,
Mm.
right? Minimal viable product. Um, and then you go with that one feature, and if that one clicks, then you start thinking about the next feature. It's the same for a business. So what is the one thing you gotta do to get your business going? And you do that until you get it there.
Just focus. Just
You
focus on the thing that's gonna take you forward. Don't try and do
Yeah. So
everything.
there is a well known guy from Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, the Mr. Wonderful, and he says there's a lot of noise and there's signals.
Mm.
You need to filter out the noise and focus on the signals. What is the signal that you need for your business right now? Is it clients? Focus on outreach,
Mm.
marketing. Is it delivery? Focus on your processes, right? So I think a lot of people need to learn how to focus and do just what is needed, not a thing else.
Mm.
Because if you're doing something else, you're spending time on something that may not bring you the revenue or may not bring you the goals that you need to achieve.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. I mean, it just goes to show there's no one size fits all. For every single person, it's going to be different. And for people who are uh, at a stage where they're looking to start learning the online world, uh, maybe taking a little bit of time to reflect on what is it I need right now. And your example is quite good there. Like, if you initially started on clients and you were like, right, I need to do some outreach to get clients. Now you've got the clients, you might be like, oh well, the outreach worked, I'll keep doing outreach. But if those clients aren't happy, you need to now change priority and do make sure your processes are good. So maybe it's a case of, not only when you're beginning, obviously when you're beginning you have to do almost a client based work trying to get someone there, but then after a while keep on thinking, what is it I need to take that next step forward? I can always keep on doing outreach, but maybe I need to start prioritizing something else. Maybe I need to start prioritizing something else. And I will keep changing. The goalposts keep changing in business, don't they? And you have to just change with them. I think that's a good answer. It's quite
And and that's
flexible.
why being a CEO is super difficult, right? Because it's not a one job. You're having to change all the time for what is best for your business. When you're a CTO or a CRO or a CMO, you're doing just one thing, but a CEO has to keep changing focus to whatever is needed for the business at the moment.
Exactly, and they have to keep on keeping the eyes out, and that's kind of another area which I wanted to talk about. When it comes to all these options, like I said to you, there's loads of ways that people can learn, and there's loads of softwares now, um, AI related and even non AI related, like even something non AI related like a CRM. There's loads of different options for which one to go to, right? So how might someone be able to figure out which one's right for them? Because obviously the easy answer would be, well, just take the free trials and see which one works. But if you've got 10 options, is it really worth taking the 10 free trials, or is there another way to simplify that process?
Yeah, so it's the ideal world is how like corporations do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
corporations do a big study before they buy, but small businesses don't have time to do that. So big corporate goes RFP process. So they list everything that they need.
Mm-hmm.
They send to the suppliers and say, "This is what I need. What can you do? What can't you do? And what can you do with customization or
Mm-hmm.
extra development?" Right. So you could do somewhat of a simplified approach to that, I would say. So list the things that you need in a CRM, for instance. I
Yeah.
need to be able to track all communication with my clients. Where's the communication? Maybe some people it's just email, maybe some other people it's instant messages on our DMs or whatever. And you list all those features that you need, and you go looking into the features page of those CRMs. They all listed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you're gonna see, oh, this CRM can track all the emails, but it can't track my DMs. And most of my sales are through Instagram. So does it really fit my need? Maybe
Right.
not,
Yeah.
right? I need to be able. I've seen a lot of people. I need to be able to send email sequences. Like want to send an email today. If nobody replies 2 weeks from now, another one. If nobody replies 3 months from there, another one. Go look into their features, see if they have sequences, right?
Mm.
Um, See, for instance, if they have easy connections to other systems. So a lot of people, at least here in North America, they use QuickBooks. In Europe, I think a lot of people use Sage for those things as well. But is your CRM gonna easily integrate with your accounting software, or is it going to be more manual process for you? So list all those features that you need and go through their feature pages. So you don't have to go through 10 trials. You can
Mm.
maybe go to 3, because by the features pages you saw that these are those 3 ones are the ones that cover your use case the best, right? And that's a way you can filter a little bit. Another way is getting some company like my company, or just a ad hoc fractional professional that understands technology and can do that for you. If you, oh, but that's too complicated, I don't know everything I need,
Mm-hmm.
right? So people like myself, my collaborators on the company, we know how to go in, ask the
Yeah.
questions, map your process, and tell you this is what you need, right? Sometimes you don't even know what you need. There's several phrases like from Ford, and he used to say, if I asked my clients what they wanted, they would say faster horses, because they
Yeah.
didn't know they could have cars,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes you just don't know what you need, right? So people like myself, fractional CTO, systems architects, technology strategists, they know how to ask those questions and they know how to define what you actually need. Of course, this is not a solution for everyone. It's not cheap labor, it's not cheap service,
Yeah,
but maybe some companies, for instance, we advise for 2 hours a month. It's maybe you go doing your feature list and you just have somebody on your side for a few hours a month just saying, yeah, you're on the right track. Oh, maybe you could change this, you could change that. So maybe you don't need somebody asking you the questions, but guiding you to be able to create the questions and answer them yourself.
of course. You're right. It's not a solution for everyone, but if someone's tried and they still can't find a solution, then it's always worth reaching out to people like you, Mario, and seeing how you could help. But yeah, going back to your answer about the initial question, yeah, of course, everything offers a free trial, and everything has a features page and a pricing page, and it's about how can you find a thing that will work for you. And of course, looking through the features is a good point because each business will have different requirements. Really, that's the whole point of the features page. So you find out what is it that this particular CRM does different, because we all know that if there's 10 CRMs, they're not all going to do the same thing, otherwise they wouldn't exist. They'd compete like the hell out of each other. So if there's 10 CRMs, they all have slightly different customer bases, and you have to find out which one of them is the best for you as a customer. And like you gave some examples, um, that's how you could kind of finalize that down, and that applies to almost every software. I've seen myself, there's so many different ways of trying things out. Even for me, for example, with the podcast, initially I used to start on the Adobe Creative Suite. I used to pay for that and use that for all my needs. Then I realized later on, actually, this is too much for my needs because the Adobe Creative Suite is built for people who make films. I'm not making a film here. I don't need something that technologically superior. So then I moved over to Canva because it was more, even though it was simpler, it was more user friendly, and that's what I needed. So it's always this process of keeping the eyes open and learning from it.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted
and
to ask, what
and
you
to
are,
be honest, just to add something here,
yeah,
if you with the advent of AI, you can actually use AI to help you build those questions.
yeah,
And
yeah,
once you've built those questions and you have your feature list, you can chat with AI, put your feature list and say, hey, go through this list of CRMs
mm-hmm,
and try to see which one best it's the best match for my use case, right? And it's gonna talk to you. It may not be the perfect answer, it may not know everything. AI
mm.
hallucinates as well, but it may give you some head start on where to start looking.
Wow. Well, you just answered my next question then, Mario. My next question was going to be if someone wants to do almost like a cheap version of what you do, without paying the price, then they could just reach out to an AI, input their
You
use
could.
cases, and seeing what, of course, it's not going to have the customized or maybe the personalized experience that you guys would have, but for the case for someone who doesn't have that much money, is bootstrapped but just needs a quick solution, AI could be
It's
really helpful.
possible. It's possible. It's helpful. Of course, it's not the same thing. It's a very
Of
different
course.
approach because the AI is trained on what other people said on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be a little bit biased on their points of view. Not totally because it has tons of points of view, so it can unbias a lot. But it's very different than having somebody that understands the nitty gritty of ins and outs in technology, going and understanding your little details that you might not see. Again, faster horses versus car, right? So maybe you don't even know what you need,
Mm.
but you can do something with AI. I've been helping a lot of people who actually use AI for those as well. It's not that I'm not gonna help just because you can't afford me. I have friends that ask me for help, and I help them figure out through AI, or sometimes I even do pro bono work for them. But it's definitely possible doing with AI. It's just not gonna be a as scalable and as professional
Mm.
solution as somebody that has been doing this for 20 to 30 years and understands the caveats that sometimes are not written on the internet. So right, we've been through a lot of implementations and we know what works and doesn't work. And a lot of times people don't put out what didn't work, right?
Mm.
So
Of
the AI
course.
can be trained on what didn't work for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And same thing with me and some people I've spoken to as well, where they say, AI does help out a lot, but at the same time, there's some solutions out there that you think, well, why did I never come across this when I searched, I don't know, Perplexity or Gemini? I never came across it, and it's just that same thing. It's it's going to promote to you the things that are promoted already. So if there's something which is kind of like a niche but perfect solution for you, you might never find out about it. Whereas a
Yep.
consultant who's been in there for 20 years has the holistic view of the whole market. They might be able to go, yeah, I know the one thing for you. Not many people use it, but I know this is perfect for your specific use case. And they'll be able to, match you up with the thing that you need. But one thing that we still haven't quite been able to solve, or maybe we're not be able to fine tune, is the fact that, again, digitalization in general is can be very grueling, because if you're a small business owner, or even if you're running quite a successful business, and you suddenly getting into this world of how do I get online processes into my business, it can be grueling because it's something new, right? And we've all seen that, like on LinkedIn or on Instagram, we've all seen that kind of diagram which shows that when you start, you're actually trying to pedal a bike with square wheels, and as you keep going, the wheels slowly get circular until you're now very efficient with it. But at the beginning, that bike with square wheels can almost make you want to stop and go back to what you were doing anyways, because like, I've never used this software before, I've never used this technology before, and now I'm having to learn it from scratch. So, especially with people who don't have the money to just be like, I'm just going to hire a team to do it for me, they have to learn it themselves. How can they find ways to either make that process not as grueling, or at least make it enjoyable so that they can see it through to the end?
Yeah, I think one of the big mistakes people go through is thinking a software will solve everything.
Right, okay.
Okay. And it's not reality. A software will try to somewhat streamline and automate something that it's out of its realm, right? So if you have a very bad process
Mm-hmm.
and you put it inside the software, it's still gonna be grueling. It's not gonna change a thing. It's just gonna be managed by a software, right?
Right.
So what I always tell people, and there is a maturity model that shows how your processes are, and it goes from 0 to 5, 0 being the process is in existence, and 5 being the process is fully automated, and there are steps in there to
Mm.
get to 5, right? So I always tell people you should go through those maturity levels, increasing your process maturity, and it's usually when you're at around level 3 in maturity that you're starting getting to get the software. I would say it's always better for you to start lean again. If you don't need the software and you can do something on a spreadsheet to start,
Hmm.
do it on a spreadsheet. You're saving money, you're saving time on implementing that thing until you actually need it. For instance, I have a client, and it's not exactly a off the shelf software, it's something we're building with them, but they have a scenario, for instance, that happens twice a month, and they wanted me and the team to build a feature in the system to handle that scenario.
Hmm.
And I told them it's not worth the time. It's happening twice a month. It's an exception. So why are we gonna waste time building something that you can do twice a month in like half an hour each time? So to save you an hour a month, we're gonna spend 10 hours of software development. It doesn't make sense,
Not
you
worth
know.
it.
So several times it's better just to have a somewhat digitized an Excel spreadsheet, a Google sheet, or something like that that can, control your process until you fine tune your process. And when your process is fine tuned and it's running smoothly, the wheel is already smooth. Then you think about getting a system. So when the wheel is already round, maybe you get a motor for it,
Yeah.
right? You're not gonna get a motor for a square wheel because it's gonna be clumsy, and it's gonna be even worse. You're gonna be bumping like crazy with that motor running, right? But once you move the wheel and it's round, maybe now it's time to put a motor, so you don't have to pedal anymore. The motor will do the hard
Hmm.
work for you.
I see. Nice. You used my own analogy and improved it. Uh, so yeah, if you have the problem of, I mean, it almost seems like a mountain, right? When you're trying to start to learn something new, it's like, how can I see this through? But yeah, maybe not expecting everything from it, because that almost makes it worse. And knowing that, first of all, before you go into software, do I really need it? So that's kind of like the first question in itself, right? Even though I'm sure you agree with entrepreneurs and people who start something on, we have I think it's called like sparkly eye syndrome or something, which is like anything that looks good, we want to try it out. Anything that even suggests to do something, we're like, yeah, let's put that in, let's put that in, that's perfect. Without realizing that actually, do I need it or not? Is this what I require? Is this going to take up too much time? Like you said, 10 hours of software development really needed for anything for a 1 hour manual task a month? The answer is obviously, anyone could say the answer is no. So first of all, the first question I'd say is, do you actually need it? And then if you say, okay, I've done my own reflection, my analysis, and I say, yeah, I totally need it, it would really be helpful. Then being like, right, okay, how can I find the best solution? And don't expect that this solution is going to fix everything. Just know that maybe of the 100% manual task, you'll automate maybe 50% of it. Because
Yeah.
I feel like if you expect that one solution to make your business non-touchable and it just works in the background, it's just not going to happen. But if you from the get-go know that, right, of these 10-step manual tasks I have, I just want this to automate step 2 to 6. The rest
Yeah.
I already know I'm going to be doing manually. Then I feel like you go into it with a bit more of a clearer idea, and you're not hoping for the best, and you already know that there's still some effort you're going to need to put into it. um and I think that's a good way of putting it, because ultimately learning anything new is difficult, but if you know it's the right thing for your business or your particular use case scenario, then putting the energy in is better. But one thing I wanted to say, again, moving on from that, because we've discussed almost like a step, right? Our conversation is almost like a stepwise. So how do you know it's the right thing for you? If you do know it's the right thing for you, how do you separate between 10 different solutions and find the one thing that works for you? But then now when you do find the solution that works for you, you know it's the right thing for you. You're trying to learn how to use it, right? Once you put it in, how do you make sure that that thing is still operating in the way you would want it to? And what I mean by that is an automation, or let's say you're doing some kind of automation with stock control, or you're doing automation with content or something like that. How do you make sure it's still doing something you want it to do and doesn't just start creating, I don't know, doing something that you start working for, if that makes sense? I don't know if I phrased that question correctly.
Yeah, it's you're talking about process improvement, right? So process is not a one-time thing that you do
Mm,
once and it's over. Process is a constantly evolving thing, right? So you gotta be constantly reevaluating your processes, making sure that they are running smoothly. You're always gonna find new bottlenecks.
mm,
Always. You're always gonna find new bottlenecks because you're gonna optimize this side and then this side starts to become the bottleneck because it wasn't optimized, right?
yeah.
So process improvement is something continuous, it never stops, right? And you gotta be looking into your system as well. Do I am I having to take too many steps to do this? Is this generating the right information, or I'm constantly having to correct on the other side,
Mm,
right? So those are the markers you're going to be looking to see if your system is still the best solution for your process, or maybe it's time to readapt the system or reconfigure the system to the new process that it's constantly evolving. You're never gonna finish a process. I bet you if you go to a Coca-Cola factory today, the processes are different than a year from now, that are different from 10 years from now, that are different from 50 years from now.
mm-hmm.
But it's the same product.
Yeah, the process keeps changing.
The process keeps changing. And every time there's a new technology, the process might change again, right? So people keep bringing new technologies and adapting the process to become more and more and more efficient. And it's the same thing with the startup. You're going to start with a very manual process and you're going to start evolving that process step by step to the stage that you are.
Mm, yeah, that's true. And yeah, I suppose that's true in terms of getting to the point where you're comfortable with the thing working for you is not an easy process, because there's always, as you're learning to do it, as you're learning to implement it, even once you have implemented it, you'll still find places where a subtle improvement is needed and a subtle iteration is needed. And of course, as we talked about it, you could try and do it all on your own. If you don't have the money, if you have the time, then of course learn it yourself, do it all on your own. If not, then you might have to reach out to people like you and be like, right, I've tried this, I've tried to put this into my processes, but it's got to a point where it's now out of my league. I can't figure out what the problem is. Can you help me? And of course, that's where you, with your years of experience, can come in and try to find the solution. for that particular scenario and that business, right? And try to figure out, is the problem in finding the right solution, or is the problem that they didn't have the right framework to begin with? Because sometimes people might, I'm probably guilty of this as well, not having the right framework to begin with, months and years down the line will then come to bite you, and you realize that, oh my goodness, this simple thing I did at the beginning, I need to change that. I need to change the foundational processes of my business just to make it go forward. And of course, you need someone like you to see that and then guide someone how to do it, because otherwise you don't know what you don't know. Which is another thing in business, but that's a topic which is completely separate. You don't know what you don't
Yeah,
know.
and you know what? I started my career on big ERP implementations, so big enterprise software for companies like Coca-Cola, Michelin,
Mm,
uh, very, very large solutions. And it's not by chance that all those implementations start with a very thorough process mapping, analysis, and enhancement. So
right.
before you even install a single piece of software or do a single piece of customization or configuration, there's tons of people going in to understand every little detail of the process and see if it makes sense or it can be improved before you put in the software.
Mm,
So it's not an accident that those implementations happen that way. It's because the process in the system is just the process that you put into the system. If your process outside the system is not good, it's not going to be good into the system as well.
interesting. I want to ask you, just for my own curiosity. Obviously, you're in this realm of optimizing tech for businesses, but of this entire process in your business, what's the one part of it that you really enjoy, and really gives you happiness?
Well, what I really enjoy is, I would say, learning. So
Oh, really? Okay.
every time I get into a new industry, it's something I really like because I gotta learn so much from that new industry I'm going into for a new client, right?
Mm,
So a few years, 3, 4 years back, I was the chief technology officer for pharmacogenics company. Pharmacogenics is a company that by your genes tells you which drugs work good or not so good for you. It's because you can metabolize or not metabolize them as
mm,
well. And I had to learn so much about genetics. We do the basic genetics on high school, right? But I had to learn so much about genetics to be the CTO for that company that it's something I love. I just had to stop and learn all that thing for
mm,
that business.
I see.
And I think I like doing the technology. I do. I like getting the right solutions for companies. I do. But learning about new businesses, new industries, and how to best help them and how to architect something different than everything else that I did in the past, right? Because it's a different business. So,
Hmm.
how can I get all that knowledge from the past, get together with the new knowledge from this industry, and create something that really works for this? I think people think about technology being a, a science, an exact science, but there's a lot of creativity into it. How to piece
Yeah.
the things together in a way that makes sense for that business, and that creativity spark. Because I'm not a creative writer or a creative drawer or something like that. That side of creativity I don't have, but the creativity of picking up the little pieces of technology that exist and piecing them together into something bigger in an architecture that works for something that nobody has ever done before. That's what gives me joy, and learning about those things and learning how to put those things together. That's what I like the most about the job. And that's why being a fractional chief technology officer, a fractional chief information officer is probably the best job in the world for me because I'm always seeing new stuff.
Wow, that sounds equally complicated, scary, but also amazing at the same time. Uh, I mean, there's a lot of big words, a lot of big things you're doing. Um, for these companies, like obviously for someone at my level, it's hard to even fathom what it's like to create a technological infrastructure for a pharmacogenetics company. Uh, but I can see, like, from, if you just consider like first order learning, if you know the things that exist out there, if you can take the experience you have from the past and then just somehow collate it into a big infrastructure ecosystem that works for this company, then of course you've changed things for the better. It might be a solution that people have never used before. It might be a combination of applications that people have never used before, but it just works,
Yeah,
and it
or
just functions perfectly for this
a
company. And
simple combination of technologies, because technology is it's like a Lego block, right?
mm,
You're getting little pieces and stacking them together, joining them in a way that it builds the architecture.
yeah,
So it's you gotta remember, it's a little bit of the memory game and a little bit of Lego. You gotta remember which pieces exist and how they tie up together to build those bigger things for those industries.
of course. And I wanted to ask you, for people out there that are, like, going to bring back the topic, but people out there that are dabbling on whether they need to introduce technology or AI into their workflow. Uh, Obviously, I think we'd agree that in nowadays, it does, if implemented properly, technology does really complement your system already. It doesn't take over what you're trying to do. I mean, unless, like, even if you're someone who does art, right? Obviously, you're not going to use technology to create the art for you, but you could still use technology in distributing it or marketing it, or even things like stock control. It can always use at a small scale or a large scale, depending on use case, right? But what would you say to someone who's just thinking, is this the right thing for me? Should I just stay in my manual process, or should I try to at least go into technology? How might you encourage them to not be so scared of it?
Yeah, I heard somebody once say, and I repeat it a lot. Every company is gonna become a tech company, whether they
Mm.
want it or not. Okay, we live in a digital world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you do art or you do farming or you do something that is completely non-technological, it's very hands-on, or construction,
Mm.
right? Your clientele right now may not be a digital clientele, but if you want to keep selling to the younger generations and you're not online, you're not going to find them.
Mm. It's
Your
not gonna work.
generation doesn't buy analog, your generation buys digital, right? So if you can't find the thing you're looking for online, you're probably not going to buy it, right? So it's not a question of if you should do it, it's a question of when should you do it,
Mm.
right? It's not that every company is going to have software developers or every company is going to be a hard tech company, but every company has to have technology in their future if they want to survive in the future, right?
Mm.
There's no way around it. Unfortunately, even myself, I'm a tech person, but I'm a very private person. So for instance, doing podcasts is something very on the edge for me because I'm a very private person. But I also know, as you were saying, brand awareness, marketing. It's important to set my personal brand out there. So that's why I do podcasts and I do um, conference speaks and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, because it's important. It's not that I want to do it, it's because my business needs it, right? And technology is the same. It's not maybe because you want to do technology, but your business is going to need it at some point. Unless your business is going to die with a generation that is analog, and you don't want to deal with your business with a new generation, you're going to have to go digital somewhat,
Yeah.
in some way, to some extent.
Yeah.
It may not be everything, but to some extent, in some time, in some way, you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah. I think that's something that is reiterated in a lot of my podcast episodes. People always say that no one's telling you to ditch everything and go all out into tech and AI and software, but it is a hard truth. And I suppose whenever you tell someone it's a hard truth, it almost insinuates, well, it's a negative thing, we're forcing you. But at the same time, you can take it in a different way. You don't have to think of the fact that, oh, society has forced me to take this on. It's just something new to learn. And if you're running a business, you should already know that there's always something new to learn, and this is just another thing. And just because it's in a different industry or something you've never done before, you could either take it as a, well, for goodness sake, I need to learn this stuff, or at the same time, take as an interesting way of like, where could this take me? Where could this take things? And trying really, really small. And a lot of people have said that, and a lot of guests have said that, where it's about take just that first step. Just try that first small thing that might help you. That might even be something like make an account on ChatGPT. Like even something small like that can get you to feel like what is technology about, or trying a free trial for a particular software, or going to a networking event and asking someone, this is my business, how can I start putting technology into it? There's loads of ways to reach out and learn, but it's about taking that small step and just seeing where it takes you. And you might notice that after a while actually you don't like it and you want to go back, but at least you're one step further in saying that I gave it a go, and
Yeah.
I know it doesn't work for me, rather than I never tried it in the first place. So it's very, very
Yeah.
powerful, thinking of it that way.
And I think business owners, they're always trying to do what's best for the business, right? So if you're a business owner, nobody's paying you unless your business is making money,
Mm,
right? So it's up to you. Do you want to still keep making money? Do you want to still be a business owner, or do you want to sell it and retire? Because if you still want to be a business owner, there's absolutely no way around having technology
yeah,
to
that's
some
true.
extent. So yeah, I wouldn't say digitizing everything, but to some extent, you're gonna have to have technology. Businesses 100 years from in the past, they didn't have phones. Can you imagine a business without a phone today?
Exactly. See, the difference is crazy.
Businesses 40 years ago, they didn't have emails. Can you imagine a business without an email today?
Yeah,
Right. So those things come to make life easier and to make your business more visible. Maybe 40 years ago, you could only make business with people in your own town. I have clients across the globe today,
exactly.
right? So if you're looking into getting your business to the next stage or to a better stage, there's no way around technology, unfortunately.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Well, Mario, thank you so much for going through that. Like I said, we went through a very stepwise approach there, talking about why you should first accept that technology is something you need to start to look into. Then, now that you have accepted that, how can you move to the next stage of understanding in which part of your processes you're going to use technology? Because if you try to, as we discussed previously, if you try to use it on everything, you're just going to burn out. It's not possible. It's not feasible, especially if you're a small entrepreneur who doesn't have the time to learn absolutely everything out there, focusing on what is the one thing that I can do. Then from there, establishing, all right, now that I know this is the thing I need fixing, not falling for the trap of thinking it's going to fix everything, trying to identify which specific things is it going to fix for me and how can I learn that. Then learning it, trying to implement it. Even when you're trying to learn how to implement it, don't try to learn everything, only the things that once you've done a quick analysis of the features, uh, identifying which of these is the one that's most suited to me, my use case, I don't know, my customers or my processes or my stock or whatever, whichever thing is the most workable for you, learning how to use it, implementing it, and then even after implementing it, not just standing still and going, well, bingo, I've done it, I've put it into my business, that's the end. It isn't. It's about continually improving it, finding the next bottleneck, how can you break through that, and the next bottleneck, how to break through that. And then if you've done all of those stages and you're still stuck, then realizing that maybe it gets to the point where you have to reach out to people like you, Mario, and being like, okay, I've done all these stages. I've made sure as much as I can from what I know, implementing in a way that's sustainable, but I've still hit a big bottleneck. I don't know how to break through. Can you help me? And then people like you come in and holistically view everything, find your own solutions. And it might just be a simple case of saying, right, well, this is a problem, let's just fix that. Or if it's something complicated, then making an entire infrastructure for this company, about how you can solve that problem. So it is a very step by step kind of solution. There's no one size fits all. And so that's why it's quite difficult. I'm sure from your end as well, some of the questions I ask you, it's quite difficult to give an answer which is like, yep, this is the one thing to do. Yep, this is the one thing to think about. It's impossible, right?
Yeah, it's
You have to give
impossible. It's
quite not vague, but quite
even
flexible answers on that one.
even businesses on the same industry, competitors,
Yeah.
it's different. Their processes, their architecture, their infrastructure, they're different because they thought about things in a different way. So there's no one size fits all. There's no cookie cutter.
Yeah.
The only cookie cutters commodities in technology are like office suites. And
Mm-hmm.
even then you have options. You have Microsoft Office, you have Google Workspace, right? So there's no cookie cutter solution for digital transformation and digital implementation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. And apart from that, Mario, where can people find out more about what you do? And if they do need to reach out, if they are at that stage where they need to reach out to someone to give that more of a consultant kind of viewpoint, how can they reach out to you?
Well, they can always reach out to me at mario@rayem.tech. That's REYEM dot tech. They can go to our website, www.rayem.tech. And all the socials, it's Rayem Tech.
There you go. It's
Very
quite
simple,
easy. Yeah,
quite simple. Or just look at me on LinkedIn, Mario Meyer, Reyemtech. We are all there. We try to post a lot of news on the industry. So if you want to get to know what's happening on technology, I always have some my takes on some of the industry news. And just reach out. I'm always open, even if you don't need my services or just want to talk and discuss a little bit about technology. My chat is always open.
amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Mario. Giving me such a good insight into how a business that isn't in the digital world, how can they take that first step to becoming digital and embracing this global internet we have, um, and how to not make it look like the big mountain it is, the scary tech world it is, and try to view it as just a natural progression of a business in terms of learning it further, and really just trying to fall in love with it if you can, and progressing that way. Thank you for coming on, Mario. I'd love to have you again in another episode. We didn't really get to talk too much about AI, so there you go. If you have another episode about AI, how can someone implement AI into their business? That is another completely different discussion. That's something that, with tech like Office Suites, like you said, with Microsoft and Google, well, Microsoft has been the same thing almost for the last 10 years. Whereas AI, you'll have a new solution every week. So, how on earth do you get your head around that? Not only from a point of view of a small business, but even from your end, I don't know how you probably get around that. If you're trying to have that, you're a consultant. If you're trying to have that holistic understanding of every solution out there, I have no clue how you even do that if the solutions
We
are
are always
changing.
learning. It's a
Exactly.
profession where you can never stop. If you're in tech and you don't like studying and learning, you're in the wrong profession.
There you go.
Because
AI is gonna beat it into you.
my 25 plus years in the industry, I don't think there was a single day I wasn't learning something.
There you go. See, so in the future, I'd love to have another conversation about how someone can implement this big beast of AI, and again, trying to get that into your business and see how it can work. So there we go. Conversation keeps going. But thank you for
Sure.
coming on and
Thank you
sharing
for
your
having me.
insights.